So there's this story of this teacher up in Port St. Lucie. Now, I've been reading a little bit on social media. Of course, everybody's outraged on different sides of the coin, depending on what your opinion is. But this school up in Port St. Lucie, apparently, if you don't turn in assignments, the lowest you can get if you don't turn it in is a 50%, not a 0.
What?
Yeah, and the teacher quit.
If you don't turn anything in, you can get a 50?
The lowest they don't give zeros out. They only give 50s out. Now,
That is ridiculous.
I don't know all the details of the school. To me, as an outsider looking in and reading these details, not giving a 0 for someone not turning something is ridiculous. And maybe I'm not seeing it from the perspective of the school, but what's happening where if you don't turn something in, you still get credit?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where we are with this story. You know, I read it too, and it's actually up on our Facebook page right now.
Oh, it's a good read.
Yeah.
Read the comments. It's a real good read.
Yeah, so that people can kind of like jump into it and help us out maybe to figure out exactly what is going on here. It's Westgate in Port St. Lucie is the school, and it's this teacher, Diane Tirado. She's been a teacher for almost 2 decades, and she started working as an 8th grade social studies teacher this year. And at the beginning of the year, she gave her class this assignment to make an explorer's notebook. So they had 2 weeks, but some of them didn't turn in anything. So for that, Diane gave them zeros. And earlier this month, she got fired for it, is kind of the headline of the story.
But then you read the comments, it's like, oh, she didn't get fired for that.
Yeah, so that's kind of the debate because, you know, some people that are with the school board are saying there's no district policy prohibiting teachers from giving a grade of 0. The school is standing by her firing, too, from one story I read saying that this was just kind of a pattern of her being defiant and she wasn't just fired over the grades. So
Which is possible.
Right.
My whole thing is this. Is the policy where a kid doesn't turn something in, they still get partial credit for that? That's really kind of all I care about with the story.
I think that's what we're trying to get to the root of. And I still would say that, you know, some stories are running with it. Other stories are saying, no, that's not necessarily the case. So, yeah, if we could boil it down and somebody could let us know, is that really the case? Can we believe it as is? And if that is the case, if you don't turn in anything at all, how can you still get a 50% and justify that? Why would you give someone 50% if they just completely blew off an assignment?
I saw one of the comments who claimed she was a teacher from the school who said, we get high marks, we expect so much from our students, our grades are great, and that's awesome. Again, even if you are a high academic school, is it still you don't turn something in, you get a 50?
It's a great question. Where it went viral was Diane, the teacher. She left a handwritten message on her whiteboard for students that read, "Bye, kids. Mrs. Tirado loves you and wishes you the best in life. I've been fired for refusing to give you a 50% for not handling anything or handing anything in. Love, Mrs. Tirado." She then posted that up on Facebook, and of course, you know, broke the internet. And
people were outraged because I can't believe she would put that note where children could see it. She got the children involved in her drama.
She went viral, which is awesome.
Other people are like, she should have done that. Kids, if they don't turn something in, they deserve a 0.
So this is kind of on the whole path of the participation trophies and, you know, what is exactly going on here. So that's, I think, kind of the question that we have.
Well, let me ask y'all the question. Do you support turning in nothing and getting still 50%? Or do you think that's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard?
It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. If you turn in nothing, you get a 0, which is nothing.
Try that at your job when you get that.
Yeah. In the real world, go do that with your employer. When you don't complete your work assignments, they're going to be pissed.
But if I don't have all the facts of the case, stop screaming at the radio and stop texting in how I'm a terrible person. Call in and let me know.
I read 3 or 4 different sources on the story and collected a little smattering of different facts from each one. So, yeah, we're just trying to boil down what, you know, is really going on here with the story. And, you know, is it possible, too? I know that these schools, it's so competitive, their kids have to get a certain level of grades or else they don't get a certain amount of funding. And so is that part of it? Is there a reason, if there is a policy, that it's tied in? So the school's trying to pad itself and protect itself?
Now, that would make sense.
Yes.
You want your funding, and you can only get it if you have a certain rating.
Right. So ultimately, the overall benefit of the school is going to suffer if some kids blow off some assignments because our grading goes down, we get less funding. I don't know. Is there another reason behind that? I'm not saying it is. I'm just asking a question.
I mean, I would have If I would have got 50s for not turning in assignments when I was in school, oh, man.
I would have got straight 50s.
Kim is on here from Boynton. Yes, Kim, you've got your friend works at the school that we're talking about, Westgate.
My friend's son goes to the school at Westgate.
Okay.
And someone had sent me the story, and I read it, and then she texted me, and she's like, have you seen it? And I said, but didn't your son get the 0 for not turning in something last year? And she's like, no, he got the 50%. Because he didn't turn it in, he was absent, or he didn't get the paper or whatever. But he got the 50% for not turning it in. She's like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying that is a legit school policy that if you don't turn anything in, you still get 50%.
Yes, she actually sent me a picture of their school policy for grading. It is on there in red, like it said in the story, that if they don't turn it in, it's a 50%, not a 0. We don't do a no 0. It's a no 0 policy.
Do you know why they do it that way? Any idea?
I have no idea.
Okay.
And because I'm a teacher, and I actually just sent home interims, and parents are like, why do they have F's? And I'm like, well, they don't turn in the work. I gave them a 0, so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
They interviewed one dad.
Thank you very much.
They had the dad on there. He's like, I like the policy. You don't know what's going on in the kid's life. You have no idea. So the kid doesn't turn something in. You don't know all the details. The kid should get a 50. Something along those lines. Like, all right.
All right, let's continue to raise these soft kids that think that they can do nothing and still get half credit. Yeah, let's do that so when they go out in the real world, they are in for a terrible life.
Susie can maybe explain it a little bit here for us, why if you don't turn anything in, you still get a 50%. Why is that, Susie?
Yeah, the reason behind it is there's some educational research, and I'm not going to say whether it's a right or wrong policy, but if you Google the case against the 0, that's a lot of what the St. Lucie School District has looked into, and it's not so much about giving half credit for doing nothing. It's that the grading scale, every letter grade from A has 10 points. It's from 100 to 90. B is from an 89 to 80. But the F range goes from 59 to 0. So what they were trying to do is kind of bottom it out at 50 so that the F range is now a 50 to 59. If you don't do something and you get a 0 on the regular grading scale, and then you get the next thing and get 100, when you average those two together, you get a 50, which is still failing. By making the bottom a 50, and then your next grade is 100, averaging those together is a 75. So they were just trying to level the grading columns, not so much giving half credit for not doing anything.
Okay, but then the headline of the story became, you can't get a 0%, and then people start flipping out thinking that it's all about the softening of our society and our kids and all that.
Right, and that's still probably up for debate, but I just know that that's a large portion of where it's coming from, is to kind of help the averaging in.
Yeah, well, I understand that, and I think that's fair because, I mean, to me, I always knew as a kid growing up that if I got an F on something, if I got an A, I'd wind up at a C, and that seems to be fair. And so it seems like it's more just semantics and the numbers itself.
Look, if you're given an effort and you just blow the paper, I agree with the whole that there's too much of a percentage with the F. But if you're not turning anything in, no effort, 0 effort. Sorry, that's a 0. You get nothing. You get nothing.
Well, it's not that you get anything. I think what it is just trying to say that because if you didn't hand anything in and something happened where you didn't turn in an assignment, and there could be reasons, and maybe it was legit, maybe it wasn't. But regardless, if you get an A the next time, you still have an F average. And I think that's what she's saying. So it's all about averages, not so much saying we're going to be soft on our kids and give them a pass. We just want to make sure that if you get an F, which is completely like you didn't turn anything in, if you get an A, you're back at a C at least.
You hear that, Virginia? Snowflakes got to him.
Yep. Making these
kids soft. So you
soft.
think that? So you would have to get how many A's then to make up for that one assignment?
That's what happens when you don't turn stuff in.
Okay. All right.
If you blow it off and don't turn anything in, you deserve a 0.
I mean, you do that on a job. There's a chance you might get fired. I'm just saying. There's got to be a little bit of, like, I would have totally abused that system in high school. Like, oh, I've got to get 50%. I'm definitely not doing this research paper. I'll make it up on the next one.
It might have still been the same thing when you were in school. I don't know if this is
plenty of zeros.
No, but I don't think you understand. Like, what I'm saying is if you would have had two grades and you got an F on one and an A on the other, and you didn't even turn it in on the one assignment, you still would average out as a C. That's how it always worked when I was a kid. I don't know how they did the numbers on it, but that was always the case, and
Well, if you
that
do
always
two-
worked out.
If a teacher gives you 2 assignments and you only do 1 of 2, your grade should severely suffer from that. If you
Yeah.
only have, and there's some college classes that only give you 2 assignments. You have 2 papers to do, and that's all you get.
Okay. Betty's on here from Hollywood. What's your comment, Betty?
After teaching 20 years, I've seen the grading system change. A lot of the big issues is that they're weighing a lot of the assignments, and if it's a high weight assignment and you give them a 0, sometimes it might be hard for that child to come up. But there is a rule that says they have 48 hours to make an assignment, and most teachers will be even more lenient, especially if they know the child was sick or they have issues at home. But it's just easier for everybody involved. A lot of times the parents don't want to get involved and force the kid into doing anything. It's hard. The administrators, they just want to please the parents. So they just say, just give them the 50. Just give them the 50. So, I mean, a lot of people don't realize what goes on behind the walls of education. But there's been, I never thought it would happen to me, but it did, where they told me, just give the kid a D, pass him on, and he'll be somebody else's problem later, and he'll quit by the time he gets into high school. And shortly after, I quit.
That's awful.
You sound like so many of my teacher friends, honestly.
How can you say that?
It's just a lot of people don't realize that is reality in the education system. That's why kids have become so lazy, and they don't want to, they don't have pride in their work. They know that whatever they turn in, they'll get some credit if they even bother, because they know the policies, they know how to do the calculations. And in a lot of schools, they don't even want to give percents, they give points, which is easier because a kid, all he has to do is get an 85, and he's already got 4 points. Versus a kid who gets 100 still gets 4 points.
Right. Somebody's
So
saying,
they play the numbers game. And it's all about, because the state pays the schools based on their grades. We also have the state exams they have to pass. So despite the fact that they say don't teach to the test, we have no choice. We have to teach to the test because they get on our case if the kids don't pass the test.
Okay.
So it is a game, and unfortunately the kids know all the rules, and so do the parents. And sometimes they play it, and sometimes, they require more of the kids. It all depends on what comes from the home.
Okay. Yeah, somebody was saying that maybe what they ought to do is, instead of making an A all the way to 100, maybe shorten the grading scale a little bit. So maybe an A is just a 20, and then you still have an F be a 0. In order to solve this problem, the grading scale should be a 20-point differential from an A to an F.
Yeah, and again, if a kid's doing the work and trying, and they just blow the paper or they blow it, but they're giving somewhat of an effort, yeah, I say work with that kid, but 0 effort I'm sorry, you get a 0.
Yeah. Okay. Well, interesting stuff. One of the big stories that's blowing up today.
People are mad.
Right here in South Florida.
They are